All right, let's just dive right in, shall we? Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're putting on our investigative journalist hats, and we're looking at one of the most absolutely chilling cases in American history. Picture this. It's the late 1960s, and a massive shadow has fallen over Northern California. You've got this brutal assailant targeting young couples in secluded lovers' lanes. But, while the crimes themselves were undeniably horrific, what we are really going to dig into today is the unprecedented psychological warfare that followed. Because what truly paralyzed the public, it wasn't just the violence. No, it was this phantom's masterful, almost theatrical manipulation of pure fear.
This is the Zodiac speaking. Just sit with that for a second. With those 5 simple words, this killer claimed a whole new identity. He basically wrapped himself in this dark aura of theatrical villainy. And by doing that, he took absolute terrifying control of the entire narrative. He wasn't just some nameless suspect the cops were chasing anymore. He made himself into a self-appointed supervillain.
So the crucial thing we have to ask ourselves, and really the central question of our whole explainer today, is this: how exactly did an unseen killer paralyze an entire state without ever showing his face? Like, how do you manage to hold millions of people hostage using nothing but paper, ink, and this thick blanket of ambient dread? Well, let's systematically break down his tactics.
Section 1. Dawn of the Zodiac. July 31st, 1969. Everything kicked off with a highly calculated opening move.
Section 2. Manipulating the police. His very first objective was incredibly bold, turning law enforcement's own tools right back against them.
So out of nowhere, 3 near-identical letters land simultaneously at 3 different newsrooms in Northern California. And inside those letters, it was basically an investigator's ultimate checklist. Now, police always withhold certain facts from the public, right? They do it to weed out the fake confessors. Well, the Zodiac totally knew this. So he just provided highly specific, completely unreleased details about the crime scenes right there in his letters. He listed the exact brand of ammunition he used. He detailed the precise number of shots fired. He even accurately described the exact positioning of the victims' bodies. By sharing these facts that literally only the killer could know, he proved to law enforcement that he was the genuine article. It was an instant, terrifying way to establish credibility.
But he didn't just stop at written details. Later on, he escalated things to gruesome physical evidence. He actually mailed a piece of victim Paul Stein's blood-stained shirt straight to the police. I mean, think about that. This was the ultimate power move. It was his way of definitively proving, without a shadow of a doubt, that he was not only still active, but completely untouchable. The message was clear. He could commit a murder right in a major city, tear a piece of clothing off his victim, and just casually drop it in a mailbox.
Section 3. Weaponizing the printing press. You see, he didn't just want the police to know he was smart. He wanted the whole world to know.
He looked at the media landscape of the 1960s and brilliantly, sick as it is, turned the morning newspapers into his own personal megaphone. Let's walk through the terrifying extortion timeline that came with those initial July 31st letters. So enclosed with his messages was a 3-part cipher, and his ultimatum was incredibly stark. Thursday, the letters arrive at the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Friday afternoon, that's the strict deadline to print the cipher right on the front page of all 3 papers. And the consequence, if they ignored him, he explicitly threatened to cruise the streets and kill again over the weekend. He wasn't just demanding news coverage, he was demanding a global audience for his cat-and-mouse game, literally turning every single citizen into a reluctant participant.
Section 4. Evolution of the Ciphers. This is where we see him really mocking authorities through his codes.
So, those terrified newspapers ultimately complied with his demands and printed the codes. And what happens next brilliantly illustrates a mind that was constantly adapting to challenges. First, we have that initial 408 cipher, a desperate public set to work on it, and surprisingly, it was cracked in just 1 week by a high school history teacher and his wife. The decoded message gave us this deeply disturbing glimpse into his fractured psyche, revealing his motive. It said, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." But, the Zodiac didn't like being beaten so easily, so he escalated. Later in 1969, he sent the Z340 cipher. This 340-character puzzle was designed to be exponentially harder. And it worked. It baffled the absolute greatest cryptography experts in the world for over 50 years. It literally wasn't until an international team of amateur codebreakers used specialized software in 2020 that it was finally cracked. He intentionally escalated his technical psychological warfare for one reason: just to prove he was smarter than the experts.
And when that incredibly complex Z340 cipher was finally decoded half a century later, what did it say? It opened with this: "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me." It's just this cruel, arrogant, mocking tone, proving once and for all that the ciphers were never actually about sharing information. They were entirely about the thrill of the taunt.
Section 5. The school bus threat. This is where he starts weaponizing everyday ambient fear within the entire community.
As time went on, his taunts grew increasingly creative and honestly, just cruel. He outlined this clinical, terrifying plan for what he called his death machine. Step 1, he actually drew and mailed these intricate diagrams of a massive explosive device to the authorities. Step 2, he openly threatened to detonate this bomb on a school bus full of children. And Step 3, the psychological fallout. By merely suggesting this horrific act, he forced bus drivers across the entire region to drive in a state of absolute constant terror. The thing is, he didn't even have to build the bomb to engineer mass panic and dread. The mere fear of the unknown was doing all the heavy lifting for him.
He also treated his crimes like this macabre sporting event. Take the number 17, for instance. This completely exposes his sick scorekeeper mentality. At the bottom of his letters, he would routinely update this running tally. He would literally write out Zodiac 17, SFPD 0. He was reducing actual human lives to points on a scoreboard, all just to publicly humiliate the police.
Section 6. Blueprint for Modern Terror. Let's look at the profound legacy of an unseen author.
Though the letters eventually stopped in the mid-1970s, the comparison to today is quite chilling. Think about it. The Zodiac had this desperate need for an audience, right? And he used the absolute best technology of his day to get it. Back in the 1960s, his demands meant holding newspaper front pages hostage. But today, well, it looks remarkably like bad actors exploiting digital algorithms for maximum reach. His taunts relied on anonymous mailed letters. Today, that exact same psychological manipulation is mirrored in anonymous internet trolling and harassment. And his sick metric of written scorekeeping, tallying up his impact, that has evolved into a desperate hunt for likes, shares, and views online. The technology has definitely changed, but the blueprint for psychological manipulation, it remains exactly the same.
Which leaves us with this final thought to really ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. The mystery of the Zodiac remains entirely open. His true identity forever hidden behind complex codes and deliberately misspelled words. But his methods? They are everywhere. If a man with nothing but a pen, a cipher, and a postage stamp could successfully paralyze an entire state in 1969, how incredibly vulnerable are we to the unseen authors of today's digital terror? It's a lot to think about. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep asking those hard questions, and I'll see you in the next one.